speaking of memes, it feels like this has been a meme for about 10 years. SB says, according to Mark Gurman, Apple is shutting down its car division without ever launching a product or even a public demonstration. It's interesting to contrast Apple's failed car efforts to Waymo, Alphabet's autonomous driving division. Ben has repeatedly criticized Google and Alphabet for not shipping products, but one big exception looks like Waymo. So, what made Waymo succeed, unlike Apple's car efforts, and what separates Waymo from the rest of Google? So, I honestly am more curious about Apple and its car efforts and any thoughts you might have there. But you can also answer the Waymo distinction question, whichever you prefer.
Well, Waymo is that's always been the Google sort of like pie in the sky project that has always been compelling, because what makes something compelling is not just making, if you're a new company or just in general, I mean, what was Tesla relative to everyone else, right? It was built from the ground up to be an electric car. It was a computer on wheels to a much greater extent than previous car companies. And to do that, they had to fully integrate to a much greater extent than previous car companies, right? They felt like a lot of the supply chain didn't really work for them, and they had to sort of bring that up. And you need that sort of paradigm shift to pull that off. And you had the fact that car companies had no interest in building electric cars. That was a capability they want to develop. There wasn't a proven market for it. They went out and made the market, and they benefit to the extent that now all the regular car companies are trying to catch up. But it turns out, I wrote an article like in 2016, it's a Tesla. Like, the brand of Tesla is a meaningful differentiator, and all those other electric vehicles don't have that, and people aren't particularly interested. You saw the announcement this week. Mercedes is like, they said, in 2030, we're going to only build electric cars. This week, like, nah, just kidding. And then like 2 days later, Audi's like, we said that too, and yeah, just kidding. Waymo is interesting in that it's not a new car per se. They're on like Jaguars or stuff like that. It's a completely new way to think about sort of transportation, where it is a sort of like a centralized sort of network, and you don't drive, but you also don't need drivers. And to the extent it actually works better because everything is connected at some level, and it all has a common storage of information. And maybe you can see a future where the cars communicate with each other and they can tell each other what's coming up, all sort of XYZ. Now, the core problem with that is the Waymo approach. I'm still surprised this hasn't happened yet. It seems like if you had a city or an environment where there was nothing but Waymo or nothing but autonomous vehicles, it would be superior to what we have today. It would work well, accidents would be fewer, all these sorts of things. The big challenge is, how do you actually break into a market where there are humans, where there are human drivers? You have to intermix. That's where a lot of the challenges come. But I think it's a if you're completely reimagining what personal transportation means, that's interesting and that's compelling. The problem with Apple is they're kind of stuck in the middle. Like, what was an Apple car going to be? Okay, it's going to be electric. Okay, like a Tesla, and then you're just going to sell it to someone once, and they're going to use it for 5-6 years, and hopefully they'll buy another one. This kind of has the issues of an Apple TV. Apple TV can be very compelling, but then how often do people buy new TVs? Like, what's the business model sort of there? Or you're going to have self-driving. Oh, wait, why is Apple going to figure out self-driving? This is a company that could barely, failed at mobile email, right? Now, again, that's 15 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever you want to say, but it's not known as the company's strong point. And if Google can't figure it out, why is Apple going to figure it out, right? And then, you're going to have a network of autonomous fleets. You're all high end. You don't sell low end stuff. That's not what you do. It's just like culturally foreign to you to have an approach where you're going to flood the market with cars. And so it was a project that never ever made sense to me, because there was no potential sort of option that aligned with Apple's capabilities, their culture, and sort of the market opportunity. And so I think the last time I really wrote about this, I think it was like in 2016, when they like reorganized the team to XYZ. And I think I wrote,
years ago.
And I'm like, no, this was 8 years ago. I think it started 10 years ago. I'm like, glad they came to their senses. This is clearly means this project's on the way out. I was like, nope. They just kept reorganizing and kept shifting it. And on one hand, it's a credit to Apple that they did kill the project, right? And there's a famous Steve Jobs saying 1,000 no's for every yes, or sort of whatever it might be. It's problematic for Apple that this went on for 10 years when I think it was super obvious from literally day one of the rumor that this doesn't make any sense for Apple. What are they doing here? This feels like a company that has way too much money and doesn't know what
I
to
was
spend
gonna
it on.
say all the App Store fees have to go somewhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Why not experiment for 10 years on a car that you'll never even
And
bring
just
to?
compare and contrast this to something like the Vision Pro. Uh, uh, in this, like a product, it feels like only Apple could make. Meta's trying to get there, but they have the chips, they have the sort of expertise, they have the supply chains, they have the ability, they have the software, they have sort of the app ecosystem, they have the fact that, like passwords are a pain in the ass to type in on the iOS. It's a big problem. Just transfers over seamlessly with the Vision Pro because it's tied into the Apple ecosystem. It's something that feels like only they can do. And oh, by the way, they could spend a lot of money to make this work, like Apple TV Plus, like creating content that's so compelling that no one's going to create independently because the market's too small, but you can create it to solve the chicken and egg problem. Such a massively, again, you can debate, is VR going to be a thing? But if you go through that criteria of potential market opportunity, Apple's culture, Apple's capabilities, all those sorts of things, it's such a better product than a car, right? And
I mean, a car, you're dealing with engineering challenges that Apple has zero experience solving.
Even
Whereas
that,
the
though,
Vision Pro,
but there was no market,
similar.
and there was no market, and what was the business model going to be, right? And like, how is this going to actually be? How is that going to business model going to fit with Apple? Like, it just. I do find it problematic that this project went on for so long. Just to be totally frank, but at least they killed it. Now, obviously, we've talked about CarPlay. I think that's the obvious sort of thing to sort of keep pushing on. They have more advanced versions of it. Maybe there's an aspect where this will actually help CarPlay because they're not a potential competitor for the actual automakers in the long run. Maybe we'll get CarPlay on Teslas now, right? Because like there was a very who knows? I've heard nothing on that. I think Elon Musk had some sort of snarky tweet about when this was banned, which fair enough. Like won't begrudge
to
that.
The Victor go the spoils.
Troll
tweets in Elon's
right.
Case.
And by the way, phones are a much better market than cars. I mean, so there's a so anyhow.
Well, it piqued everyone's curiosity in large part because Apple's just really good at making all manner of products. And so if they wanted to put their mind to it, what would an Apple car look like? And so for that reason, I do wish we had gotten some sort of public demonstration somewhere along the way. Like when the Vision Pro came out, Vanity Fair did a profile on Tim Cook, and they describe him in some secret building, like DEFCON 1 level security on Apple's campus. Even Apple employees don't know about it or whatever. I would love to see what sort of products they've abandoned over the years. And I would love to see and learn more about what the Apple car was supposed to look like, or what the dream was, just because I'm curious from a tech perspective, like what they wanted to make. From a business standpoint, it was always crazy, and as a testament to how much money Apple has, as is a lot of other things that Apple does.
Yeah, I mean you and me and everyone in tech, we would all love to see Apple's abandoned products lab. I can promise you that.
Right?
Yeah. I think the big thing though, I think you're a bit about Apple's good at making stuff, so it'd be cool to see what they did. That's spot on, but that's where the aspects of what is the actual market, what's the business model, what is your capabilities as a company, what's your culture, come to bear. Just because you can do something, there needs to be other things in case. And again, this is where the Waymo thing is interesting. That would be a very different market than search, but there is a similar aspect of Google has a lot of technological capability. What could they do? But what Google is a service. They have cheap Android phones that their partners make. They have this sort of idea of serving everyone, of sort of being all enveloping. And so you can see, a car service is very different than search, but there's aspects of this that are in alignment with Google as an overarching services company and serving everyone and going down market and low market. That was the issue for Apple. It's always fun to imagine what a company that is very capable and has a lot of money could do, but there has to be some sort of alignment with your fundamental nature. And the car was just never aligned beyond the fact that Apple designs cool stuff. and I'm sure the car would be beautiful, but there was literally nothing else in alignment, and it kind of boggles my mind it went on as long as it did.